just the frames. Got keys to kingdom, unlocking chains. Sober the podcast, open up your brains. Sober the podcast, let's get it, man.
Welcome to season 4 of Sober the Podcast with your host Bradley Saxon, Christopher Carlton. And before we begin, we're going to do something different this season. We're going to pray. And we're going to ask God for a new, fresh experience, a spirit of wisdom, revelation, so we can know him and the power of his resurrection. So, Lord Jesus, we just ask that you set aside everything we think we know about ourselves, about you, about this program, Lord, even about your word, Lord. And I just pray, God, that we would have a fresh desire to seek you in this season, Lord, to know you in a different, real way. And we pray this, Lord, for the listeners, for those under the sound of our voices, God, that this year would be a year that we have fresh manna that helps us win new battles within us. Yes. God, and that victory would spread around us, God, and affect the people that we're in contact with. And we pray this in Jesus' name. And all God's people said,
Amen.
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 Yeah.
So, guys, we have a friend of ours that's coming in this season to take this journey with us. He'll be here from time to time, but we're excited for Mr. Steven Sanders.
Excited to be here, man. Thank you.
Is it all right if I break your anonymity?
Absolutely, yeah.
No trouble?
No trouble.
Okay. Man. So Mr. Steven Sanders from the Legacy House has stepped in with us to talk about a journey that's dear to all three of our hearts.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's really dear to all three of our hearts, and we're going to spend this season talking about the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're going to talk about the 12 steps that we have taken in our life, continually taken in our life, that has really put us in a position to be in a place of neutrality, safe and protected.
Yes.
The desire to drink liquor and do drugs is removed, and we're experiencing a life beyond our imagination.
Absolutely.
And we give credit to God, right? But we're thankful that God is a God who can use anything to bring his people to himself, right?
Yes, that's right.
I mean, I feel like if God can use a star to bring 3 wise men to Jesus, he can use a 12-step program.
That's right.
And it's not that we give glory to the 12-step program. It's that we're thankful that in that season, God picked that tool up, and it happened to be the one that really helped elevate our life. And we feel indebted to it.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
And so I feel like there's a lot of people in the sound of our voice that is indebted to it.
Yes.
And if I could be quite honest, prior to being called into ministry after about 8 or 9 years of sobriety, I never knew the conflict. Can we talk like this already out the gate?
Yeah,
I never knew there was a conflict between AA and Christians.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I have always believed in God, raised in church, knew God was Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. So when I got sent to this place and my life started changing, I never really thought that this was going to be some type of confliction with people that I'd end up doing life with, because I thought, well, you know, God can do what he does any way that he wants to do it, right?
That's right.
So when I started the Bridge Center and I started nailing down what we were going to use as treatment, right?
Yeah.
And I was a pastor, I really started to sense the pushback between people in church and people in AA. And
absolutely.
And I don't think that it's something that is malicious, maybe. I don't know. But I do think there's a lot of ignorance concerning it. And I feel like for us, it's something that's revolutionized our life, something that we've been doing. I've been doing for almost 20 years, CJ for 7, and you for close to 7, right?
4 years.
It's only 4?
Yes, sir.
Well, you attempted a few times before 4, right?
I did one time before, yes.
But it's something that I feel like we eat, sleep, and breathe. Mm-hmm. It's something that I really, truly feel like God has used to elevate our life, and I think it's important.
Yes.
That we talk about it, because it isn't everybody's experience, nor is it everybody's pathway. But seeing that it has been ours, we've been given the responsibility to carry this message to the next man.
That's right. Yeah.
And like, man, hey, here's the truth, dude. Like, I'm thankful for people's experience with God that is different from mine.
Me too.
I really am.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that he saved you, right? I'm thankful that he's changed your heart and transformed your mind, and there's things you don't do anymore because of this relationship. I think where we have to be careful is when we make our experience with God the standard.
Yep.
Right? Like God saved me in an altar. I mean, I had an experience. I never wanted to drink, never cuss again, never smoked a cigarette. That's so powerful.
It's real. Yeah.
But here's the truth. That's not my experience.
Me either.
And so you can't say because he did that and he's doing it over time with me that what you felt was real and what I experienced wasn't.
That's right.
And so I think that's where we have to learn to celebrate differences. And we have to learn to be thankful and grateful for what God's doing in your life, equally knowing that I could be thankful for what he's doing in somebody else's life, even though it looks a little different, right?
Absolutely.
Right, because I know hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that have picking up their mat and walk through an AA program.
Me too.
Right, and I'm not sitting here saying that the program in the last 85 plus years hasn't been watered down, hasn't got away from the truth. If you've sat in any AA meetings at times, you can maybe sense that we have gotten away from the manual, the big book. But when I got sober, that's not my experience. Like I was put into a group of men and women who were big book thumpers.
Me too.
Carried this message, changed my life, right? Yep. And so this season, we're going to devote some time to walking didactically through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, which we believe is held in the first 164 pages of the big book, while we also bring different voices of men and women who are big book thumpers,
Yeah.
per se,
Yeah.
to talk about each step in their perspective. Because I truly believe that we all have a little bit different perspective because of who we were raised by. But I think ultimately because we were raised by people who went by the book, a lot of what we say is the same.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a mouthful, but I mean, if that ain't got you excited about season 4
That's right,
of
yeah.
Sober the Podcast,
Yeah.
right? I don't know what is. And let me just say this disclaimer is if you're a listener and been listening the last 3 seasons, like this is not the season to take off because you've never dealt with drug or alcohol addiction.
Right.
Because quite frankly, I believe that everybody under the sound of my voice could use a 12-step program.
Yeah.
And while this season we'll be talking a lot about how that relates to alcoholics and drug addicts, this is a season that can equally add value to your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the principles that come from the Bible that were written in the big book by Bill Wilson can equally change your life concerning whatever struggle you have in this life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
So, man, I'm already preaching myself happy in here because, you know, as I'm saying this, I remember being a newcomer.
Yeah.
I remember walking into those meetings scared. You know what I'm saying? I remember not knowing anything that this program consisted of. And so as I'm saying this, I think about the people who were where I was that are still there, that if embracing this message begins to put it into action, sky's the limit.
That's right. Yeah.
Really, sky's the limit.
Really,
Like this ain't just something we're not like. This is something we do, and we understand the weight of it because this airwave is not just some talk we're having to make people happy, or to give people something to do socially. Like we truly believe that we've recovered and been given the power to help others. And we truly believe this moment, these airwaves, this message that has depth and weight has the ability to pierce a heart
Yes.
and take them in a completely different direction when all other approaches to helping the man has failed.
What happened with me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I think that we do what we do because it's worked for us and it's worked for people we've helped, and we know it can work for you.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right? So
That's
welcome to season 4. Get ready to buckle up because, I mean, if I could say this without getting canceled, I mean, is that even a thing?
Probably
This
not.
about to
own
be a
show.
hell of a ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? This is about to be a hell of a ride. I truly believe there's going to be testimonies from these workshops, these studies, where God's going to use it, and He's going to turn some people in a different direction. And 2025 is going to be the year you pick your mat up and walk.
Yeah.
I really believe that.
Me too.
I really believe that. And so, just some ways, real quickly, this year that you could help support us. Up until this point, we've been rolling, but I feel like this year, as we partner with our listeners, you guys can help us to get this content to more people.
Yeah.
Because I know that if you've been listening to this and it's add value to your life, there has to be a desire to want to get it to somebody that don't have this opportunity, don't have this tool. And so we are starting to branch out on different platforms. I just want to give you some of these platforms that you could go and like and follow and subscribe. And that would definitely be a great way to help us reach more people. And we're on Facebook. We're on YouTube, Sober the Podcast. We're on Instagram, Sober the Podcast. The links will be in the description of our video. A lot of people don't even know this. Like, you might be listening to this on Spotify, Amazon Music, Podcast, Apple Podcast, but we are also on YouTube. And I think last season we had several videos on YouTube that a lot of you guys on Spotify and Amazon, because I've looked, it ain't Amazon. Amazon isn't the top listening. It's Spotify and Apple. You two guys know that you can go to YouTube, Sober the Podcast. You can find these videos, or you can find these talks on video.
Yeah.
Okay, and liking and subscribing there would benefit us on expanding our territory and reaching more people.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what we want to do. We want to reach. We want to let people know about what they don't know that we know, right?
That's right.
And so those are ways that you could partner with us. Also, we've added a new feature to the Spotify and Apple, I know for sure, but if you're listening to it on one of those platforms, if you will look below the title of the podcast episode, you should see a button that says send a text. And you can actually click on that and now talk with us.
Oh, that's cool.
Give us feedback, tell us how this has encouraged you, what you've learned, whatever the case may be. Interact with us. We'd love to hear from you, love to, get to connect with you. And I think that's a cool new feature this season that we're adding to be able to embrace our listeners, because we're really thankful. If I was honest, we surpassed something last year I never thought we'd obtain. I think the last I looked, we were close to 25,000 downloads.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, that ain't got nothing to do with us. That's got to do with you and you listening and you sharing that with somebody. And, that's really cool. How God has expanded that.
Yeah.
So enough for all that. Let's jump in. And I think a good place to start this journey is really just a history
Yes.
of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about a program that's been around since, 1935. It's pressed through for years, till 05 when it met me, 17 when it met you. Am I right?
Yep. 17.
And
21
when it met you.
Yep.
So think about this. You have this story, this history that's interesting, because 80 plus years later, it finds us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same experience that these founders, had, we had.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
And so when I started to experience this awakening through the steps, when I worked it with a sponsor,
Yeah.
I started becoming interested in where all this stuff evolved, you know? And if we were honest, man, there has been listings of problems concerning alcohol for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Thousands. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, as far back as you can remember. I mean, if we agree that the Bible is one of the oldest written books in history, even you find in there, in the book of Proverbs, about people that were having trouble with alcohol.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? And so how many years has people attempted to create some kind of movement that could help men or women struggling with alcoholism?
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
I mean, we could name a few. We've heard of the temperate movement,
Yep.
Yep.
the Washingtonians.
Yep.
Yep.
the Oxford group, which was a Christian group that was formed to try to help men struggling with sin.
Yeah.
Wasn't necessarily concerning solely alcoholism, but I think it was this attempt to help men struggle with these personal strongholds, right? And then earlier before, Steve and I was talking about in the 1919, I think it was, America tried to do a prohibition.
Abstinence. Yeah.
Abstinence. Just, we're going to quit selling alcohol. We're not going to fund it no more, right? And then it wasn't, what, 20, not even 20 years. I mean, you talking probably 13 years later, they realized because of the, what was we saying, the revenue of the
Tax
taxes
revenue, yeah.
was plummeted.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
Yeah.
That's right. People still drinking.
People still get bootlegged alcohol. You know what I'm saying? Like, just taking it away wasn't going to keep them from drinking.
Right.
They learned to make it, sell it.
Yeah.
And so, thus begins this introduction after a while in the 1930s of what we know now as probably the greatest thing hitting the surface concerning alcoholism, which we know and talk about as Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And so I think that this is a very good topic. Because let me say this before we get started. It's funny how I drank alcohol, but I love drugs.
Me too.
Drugs was my deal. Like, I drink alcohol if it's there. I drank it before I found drugs. But once I started finding hard drugs, alcohol was something that might be there, but it wasn't my first thing.
Me either. Yeah.
And a lot of people's like, why are you in AA? Because, you know, they talk about alcoholic, but you're really a drug addict, da-da-da-da-da. Well, I think it's really cool to talk about that because when I went to treatment, man, they taught AA.
Yep.
And I remember a man telling me, you know, if you don't really relate to that, you can change the word alcoholic when you read it and put drug addict. But he said, when you go to AA, take your shoes off at the door and respect the place, because really it was always intended to be, the objective was to reach alcoholics.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right? There was intended to reach men who were struggling with drinking liquor or drinking alcohol, right? And I'm just thankful that somebody didn't allow that in the beginning to deter me away from AA just because I might particularly use a different substance.
Yeah.
As I grew, I started to understand the substance wasn't really important.
Yeah. Simple.
Like, alcoholic, drug addict wasn't really important because that wasn't even the problem. Drugs, alcohol wasn't even the problem, right?
Yeah.
I think we have NACA, HA. I think these are the attempts of creating identification, being able to relate, right?
Yeah.
But I'm thankful that I was able to stick it out a long time with AA to get past that because of the content,
Yeah. Me too.
right?
Yep.
Because it saved my life.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to say that, man, because I think that if you go to AA, you need to introduce yourself as alcoholic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because this is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, you go to NACA, introduce yourself as a drug addict. But I think in AA, if you get a sponsor with these steps, then you're able to show some, I don't know if the word is modesty. Is that even a word?
Yeah.
That's
Modesty's a word. Absolutely.
To go in and to respect the environment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That I may be struggling with drugs more than alcohol, but I'm gonna introduce myself as alcoholic just because, I mean, if there's no drugs, it's not like I'm gonna be like, hey man, you know, today because I can't find cocaine or heroin or fentanyl, I'm just not gonna drink.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna stay sober.
Yeah.
That's not the case with me.
Yep.
Like, it don't matter what it is,
Yeah.
right? So I'm using it.
Yeah. Well, I think too, less important than whether you say you're an alcoholic in AA or not is if you get with somebody that will help you understand what alcoholism really is. Because I use drugs alcoholically. I mean, it turned out that it didn't really matter if I identified as an alcoholic. I need to understand what the problem really is, because it doesn't do any good to have answers if I don't believe what that problem is.
But let's be honest, Stephen, CJ, alcohol is a drug.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? It is a drug.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I think of the drink problem that you hear in the big book, I don't think of alcohol.
No.
I think of the hopeless state of mind and body, which comes in, Stephen, when a man armed with the facts about himself and this solution actually carries the message to the newcomer.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
That's right. Yeah.
Can we get back to that?
That's what we're lacking. Yeah.
Like, can we get some people who've had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps actually carrying the message in our
Now.
AA meetings?
Yeah, like now.
And so, guess what you can start doing? You can start, pulling these newcomers aside and start qualifying them.
Yeah.
Because some of these cats in AA 40 years ain't alcoholics.
That's right.
And they don't carry the message of the big book.
That's right. They don't have to. That's okay.
Yeah, 40 years, just putting the plug in the jug.
Yep.
Well, that's wonderful, But like in this meeting, it has the potential to kill somebody
That's right.
because you got sober on a non-spiritual basis. This newcomer, this young cat, can't get sober on a non-spiritual basis, and they can't put the plug in the jug because they got a mental obsession.
That's right.
At a certain time, they're going to believe the lie.
Yeah.
And so while we're grateful you got 40 years,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Come on. That's okay.
can we share that,
Yeah.
at your brotherhood meeting?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, somebody. I mean, I feel like we helping somebody right now to realize, man, like I'm not going to the dentist if I got a knee problem.
Yeah.
And I need the dentist to tell me, hey, bro, I can't help you.
That's right.
Like, what is so bad about that? Like, why are we offended that the dentist can't help my knee problem?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at right here. The dentist can't help your knee problem, right? Well, AA can't help your drinking problem
Yeah.
concerning alcohol, right? AA can help you if you have a spiritual problem with a drinking solution.
That's
right.
right, yeah.
But if you have an alcohol problem, stop drinking, your life gets better, and you go on about your life and never do it again.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the truth about non-alcoholics.
Yeah.
Given a sufficient enough reason to stop drinking, you can do it on a non-spiritual basis.
Yes.
The alcoholic cannot recover on a non-spiritual basis.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely unable to.
And so it's a spiritual problem
That's right.
with the drinking and drug solution.
Yeah.
And these men must have a spiritual awakening
Yep.
if they're going to recover from that seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Okay, so we already preaching. We ain't really, we preaching. Let's get to the history of AA. Let's talk about where this started. Do we know where it started? Would we say that it started in Akron, Ohio? I mean, that's safe to say.
Yeah. It did start in Akron, Ohio. Yeah. I mean, the big book says that the spark that was to flare into AA struck in Akron, Ohio
Yes, sir.
in June 10th, 1935.
June 10th, 1935.
Yep. Between a New York stockbroker
New York stockbroker and a
and an
surgeon
Akron physician.
and an Akron physician.
Yes, sir.
So let's just think about this, man. Are you telling me that in these two men's life, this is not a glimpse of God intervening from heaven into their life
Yeah.
to save them from themselves?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be honest, I don't think Bill Wilson or Dr. Bob had on their calendar this day, we're going to meet, something's going to take place and shift, and we're going to write a big book.
No.
This is not on the calendar.
Right.
Truth is these guys are just they really just hanging on by a thread, trying
That's
to stay
right.
sober themselves.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's safe to say that at this juncture, alcohol had become their master and was
Yeah.
whipping their tails,
Yeah.
and they're desperate to find a different way of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
I would. Yeah.
And so I think it's really cool because really what we're about to share is the same thing that's happened to us 80-something years later, and it's not really unique. God is still doing it, and he ain't doing it just for a couple
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
He's doing it for any of those who are willing to seek because they're desperate as drowning men, right?
Yeah.
And I think the key to Bill Wilson, Dr. Bob Dotson, and the rest of the fellowship that has now come up amongst us was just this desperation,
Yeah.
this desire to never want to drink again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for the hard work they put in because they're actually obtaining something without the manual we've been freely given.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which tells me that we can't really worship the manual they had. They didn't have.
Right. It's the same thing with the New Testament.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you can't worship. You can't worship a book they didn't have more than the God they did.
That's
have.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's imperative because for me, for years in AA, because of my immaturity, I was sort of able to idolize it.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it actually come out in a profane way, right? You can worship the methodology, and it sort of blocks you from God just as much as selfishness,
Yeah.
Yep.
because that is selfish.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's imperative to realize that it is a very great resource.
Yeah.
And that's what we're calling it. We're not calling it a source. We're calling this a tool, a resource. It's a finger of God.
That's right.
Right? And we look back on this history and see how God intervenes in Bill Woodson's life through an old friend.
Yeah.
This old friend's name was
Abby Thatcher.
Ebby Thatcher,
Yep.
who was a part of the Oxford Group.
Yep.
Right? Which was one of the movements created to help men that were struggling with sin.
Yep.
And in Ebby's particular situation concerning alcoholism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever he had found, you know, was something that motivated him to go back. Now, listen, man, this is whatever it was he found created a desire that he wanted his buddies that he drank with to know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
Well, I mean, I don't care what it is, bro, because, like, even in church, you claim to love God, but it ain't created a desire for you to tell other people. There's something that you don't know, that you ain't doing, that you've missed, because you can't tell me you have found such a treasure that you do not have any desire for anybody else to know.
It's amazing. I'm sure you've watched it happen time and time again that a guy one day saying, I'm not going to be ready to sponsor. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then a week later, that same man is asking you when he can start sponsoring.
Yeah.
Now.
Oh, yeah.
Like now, because it's something that's already shifted and
Yeah,
you're wanting to give away what you found already.
But thank
now.
God for good sponsorship.
That's right. Yeah.
Because he would be lack of power. Now, let me share my manageability with you.
Sure.
But it's
Yeah.
amazing, like you said, this switch that starts to turn because they've gotten hope
Yeah.
and they want other people to experience
That's right.
it. Hope is contagious, and hope can't be kept to yourself. And when you truly experience the fragrance of it, you want to share it with other people, you know?
Can't
But
help
it is a matter of tact, common sense, being equipped, being counseled, learning how to do that, right?
Yep.
And so that's what's good about sponsorship, you know? I mean, the Bible declares it as safety net. In the abundance of counselors, there's safety.
That's right.
You know, and I think that's a lot of where sponsorship comes off. It's a safety net. What is the safety net? From me navigating my own life.
Right.
Hey, why do I put my decisions through my sponsor? I'd like to make sure this ain't my handwriting.
Right. That's right.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And so I think that's a really cool tier, per se, that we have found in AA that is very healthy. That I think you find in the Bible that is equally the same type of, I don't know what the word is, but it's the same type of model that we see in Scripture of how Jesus wanted his kingdom
yeah.
Yeah.
to work.
Yeah. One man
Right?
helping the next.
Like
yeah.
you answer to somebody, somebody answers to you. That's healthy,
Yeah.
That's right.
right? Naaman, you answer to the king. Well, people answer to you. This is accountability. This is counsel. This is healthy.
Yeah.
Right? Sponsorship. You have a sponsor who has a sponsor.
Yep.
You sponsor people.
Yeah.
Healthy. Great leadership, right? I love it. It helped me. It saved me. It still does save me from myself, right? All right, let's talk about Ebby Thatcher. So Ebby decides to just run up on Bill.
Yeah.
You ever went and tried to cop some drugs and got run up on?
Yeah.
Not by the police. I'm talking about you go to the trap and they run up on you with masks because they trying to sell their drugs first.
I have not had that one happen.
You've
no.
never had that happen?
No.
It's amazing to me that I could draw up in the trap, 5 guys run on me with masks to sell their drugs, but we can't get nobody to run up on the newcomer.
Right. Well, that's, yeah.
You get them buying into the streets, buying into the hustle, buying into that lifestyle. And then you try to convince me you're bought into this lifestyle but can't help nobody.
Right.
I'm telling you, dude, the result of buying in any lifestyle is sharing it with
That's
another
right.
person.
Yeah.
Even if it's drug dealing.
Once I discovered what meth did for me, I shared it with everybody.
Yeah, but you can't tell me that we are in recovery and we not helping nobody.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
You're not bought into the lifestyle. It's another one of those things, man, where people get adapted to the culture. They stick around long enough to hear the lingo, to know how we do things. And they look like they're in the part. But when you examine the fruit, bro, like they're not. And it's important we talk about this.
Yeah.
It is.
Because I want people's life to be genuinely transformed from the inside out, where this doesn't become a duty. This becomes something that we do because it's who we are, because somebody did it for us, right? And so I don't think that generally happens unless we have that, unless we win that battle from within through our working the steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like to always look at it from the perspective of my using. I'd be foolish to think, and I don't think I ever thought I could sit next to CJ on the couch while he got high, and that I was going to somehow get high off of it. And so I had to find my own experience, you know. And I just think the people, I look around, and I guess I think the people that aren't doing it, that aren't all in, have just missed it. And I think that's okay. I think that's good news.
Well, maybe
for you.
we've missed it for years prior to.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe we sat around and hoped that somehow we could obtain it through osmosis.
Absolutely.
But I think that we'll always carry the burden of wanting other people to experience what we did.
That's it. Yeah.
Because my first sponsor said, if I could take a little piece of what I've experienced and give it to you, you'd never drink again.
That's right.
Yeah.
But you know, that truth wasn't mine until I saw it and found it.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. It's
That's
a principle that we all three teach, is that the truth is not ours until we seek and find it.
That's right.
And so in actuality, this podcast ain't really intended to feed you. It's really intended to make you hungry so that you can learn to seek to feed yourself.
That's right.
Because our experience is wonderful to listen to. It'll entertain you, but it won't sustain you. Come on, somebody. That's
That's right.
something to preach.
Yeah.
That can preach right there.
That's right.
And you have to find your own if you want to sustain your hunger.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get hungry again if you're trying to live off what I've done.
Yeah. That's right.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So Abby Thatcher, I would imagine he didn't kick in the door. I reckon he knocked.
Waving the fofo.
Yeah. Kick in the door, wave in the fofo.
All I heard was Papa don't hit me no more.
No, I thought it was all I heard was Chase, it's your turn to flow. Shout out Chase Christian.
Yeah. Chase.
But Bill was drunk.
Yeah.
It's Cooter Brown.
Yeah.
What was he drinking? Gin
Gin.
and juice, you think?
Nah, just Jim.
Probably
At
just gin.
1935-ish, 34, I'm sure Snoop Dogg wasn't even alive.
Right.
So I'm not really sure what he was listening to. Maybe nothing. They might not even had radio. But we know he's drinking gin.
Yep.
I mean, I think somewhere it said it was maybe bathtub gin.
Yep.
Whew.
That's tough.
You know what they always told me, Stephen? Gin will make you sin.
Yeah.
That Seagram's gin. I mean, right now, if you're listening, please.
Oh, God.
It's not the move, is it?
No, it's not.
It's not the move, bro.
No.
Snoop lied to us. Snoop lied to us. So Bill had this thought as Ebby come in, and I could imagine he was beaming,
Yeah.
had a
Looked
light
different.
about him. Because, you know, the book talks about a man whose whole deportment shouts he has an answer.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd imagine that's a hair offensive to Bill.
So light in his darkness.
Yeah, but I would imagine that the gin helped him sustain the conversation.
Yeah.
Yep. Sure.
Because I would imagine if he was sober, he wouldn't have probably listened.
Yeah.
Right.
And in all actuality, Bill was really trying to find out what he had found. That he pushed the bottle of gin over to see if he wanted to drink some,
Yep.
to see if really what he had was better than what he had.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Abby turned it down.
He did.
I mean, there's a promise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have a big book, but what does God promise as we seek him? We'll recoil from these things as if they were a hot flame.
If we have motive to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So, I mean, just how monumental is this that Abby Thatcher tried to carry the message to the next man?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, bro. How much of a moment was this man who was trying to live, being led by God, a huge moment in our lives?
Yeah.
We don't think about it like that. We think about now what we're doing, but dude, we're not here without people who trailblaze before us.
Yeah.
Right? And I often say this. I think God was thinking about me.
That's why the history is important to me, because he didn't just have the two of them in mind. He clearly had us in mind.
Thousands
Yeah. All of us
of people in mind. And here's Abby, found Jesus, wants to share it with Bill.
Yep.
And we don't really understand how important that is, but I look back knowing now that That was a huge deal.
I heard some real early AA talks with Bill and Ebby and some of the early speakers, and both of them claimed in their individual talks that. So Ebby said, if I ever got as bad as Bill, I always told myself I'd quit. And Bill said in a separate talk, I always told myself if I ever got as bad as that Ebby Thatcher, I'd quit. So they were both the worst drinker in each other's lives they'd ever met. And now he sits across the table from him sober, and it's doing something for him.
Yeah.
But there was still with Bill this prejudice
Oh yeah.
concerning God.
Yeah.
But there was just this bit of hope that this conversation that Ebby had with Bill that made him think that if God can do it for Ebby, he can do it for me.
Yeah.
And when Ebby suggested that Bill choose his own conception of God, what is it that you always say?
It says the icy intellectual mountains fell from him, and for the first time in his life, he experienced the presence of God.
Yeah.
What is Ebby saying? Bro, you need to get your own relationship with God.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the things you think about God didn't come from you seeking God.
Yeah.
It came from your experience in church, or it came from something you've heard somebody else say, right?
Yeah.
And in other words, Bill didn't have the spiritual experience in the back of the book. But in other words, Bill, you're a poster boy for contempt prior to investigation.
That's right. And you're drunk.
And you're drunk.
And you're
bro.
dying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's funny that I always thought from reading the book that all happened at that table, that IT intellectual mountaintop melted at the table, but it was actually 9 months later before that happened. So that's encouraging to me to know, hey, the seed gets planted, it doesn't return void, and it's not going to
really
necessarily
good.
happen at that table right there. But I, from what I understand, the way it really went down was Ebby starts talking to him about God, and Bill was like me, he don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And he gets drunk and he can get through the conversation. He's interested in his friend, and he doesn't know how this is happening, but he's not trying to hear about Jesus. He's not trying to hear about the Oxford groups. And he pretty much gets drunk and picks at him and picks his religion and his beliefs apart. And from what I understand, it wasn't so much like an offering, like, hey, you can just choose your own conception of God like we do now. It was more like on the way out the door, like, you're an idiot, Bill, and like you better find some kind of conception because you're drunk and you're dying.
it.
Yeah.
And 9 months later, it hit him, and he went back down to the mission to go visit Ebby, and got up and gave a sermon and all that.
That's crazy, man. So, I mean, to encourage guys that are what Peter M. says, carrying the wood,
Yeah,
chopping
chop water,
the wood, carrying the water. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Peter. Yeah,
Peter Marinelli, chopping the wood, carrying the water. Keep doing it.
yeah.
Because we don't make the seed grow.
That's right.
And obviously, the attempt that seemed failure 9 months later proved to be the power of God in Bill Wilson's life. And so it ain't a matter of carrying the alcoholic. We carry the message.
That's right.
And it's powerful. And we can't make people good soil. But we do have a responsibility to carry this message.
Yeah.
And thank God Ebby Thatcher, just because he didn't want nothing to do with Jesus, did not go and carry the message.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And God has proved in that situation, his word is powerful.
Yeah.
And 9 months later, you see Bill looking for him.
Yep.
It's always,
Yeah.
oh, come on, somebody.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing how people talk about you. They reject you. They got to say things to deflect what's going on in their life. But when they get well, you're the one they call.
That's right, man.
And it's from the beginning. That's not just my experience. It's from the beginning. And I look at my life, and I did all those things because I just wasn't quite ready, and I didn't want, to feel shame or whatever it was in me that I didn't want to have to take. I didn't want to have to look at it. I can tend to deflect on people and their nonsense, but at the end of the day, man, those same people are the ones I went back to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because here's the truth. They had what I didn't. And I've realized over the years, if you're going to get somewhere, you can only get there with the people who are already there.
That's right, man.
And usually I talk about them first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Because I'm jealous.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to know I'm jealous, right? But you do have what I want. And I just realized half the people I've talked about, I've had to go back and apologize because they were the only ones that was able to get me to a next level of living I'd never
right.
been on, you know?
That's right.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, but let's be honest too, man. Like most of the time, it's not that they don't like me. It's not that they disagree with my opinion. They want what it is that permeates from my life, but they're just not quite ready to do or willing to do what I had to do to get what it is that I have.
That's right.
That's all. Like that's where always the disconnect lies, is that you want the power of God moving in and through your life. You want the hope, you want the relationships restored, you want the consistency, but you're just not willing to go through what I had to go through to be able to experience what it is that God's given me the ability to experience, man. And so it's just still goes back to a lack of willingness.
Yeah.
Like you're just not willing to do that yet.
Yeah.
And I think from some of the things that we were talking about earlier, like here's the truth. Like I'll probably take this to my grave saying this because I just see it over and over. If I have a spiritual malady, and that is my issue, which means I have a spiritual illness that shows up with a mental obsession and an allergy of the body as the symptoms. The root of the trouble is that I have a spiritual malady. Then there obviously has to be a spiritual solution to my spiritual problem.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, if I'm an alcoholic and drinking and using is my solution to my spiritual problem or my God-sized void in my life, and that's what I use for my emotions, my thinking, and the way that I feel at all times, then you got to give me something better than that. The something better than that is God, and then you got to show me how to work that out. Once I've worked that out in my life in 4 through 9, 10, 11, and 12, and I'm carrying that message to somebody else, if I, CJ, if Steven, if Bradley, if Brandon, if we don't carry this message, we don't stay sober.
Right.
I'm the guy that struggled so much with my inability to stop when I started that it had complete control over my life and it annihilated everything in its path. There is no way that I can stay sober upon something that's not a spiritual basis.
Right.
I can't keep what was freely given to me. Like I can't stay sober in that. So the bare minimum of what this program offered me was the ability to get sober, stay sober. But if I was going to stay sober, then there was some things I was going to do in 10, 11, and 12 to keep my street clean and then go offer it to somebody else.
Yeah.
I just don't know why it's always forfeited in step 12 to carry the message when that's part of the program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the program's the program.
Yeah.
Like I don't get to invent it. I don't get to just, okay, well, I'm comfortable now and I'm good and my life's okay. So I'm just going to kind of go back to doing it. That's not the program I signed up for.
Right.
I didn't know that I was signing up for that. But I know when I met you that you had something that I wanted. And if I was willing to go to any lengths to find victory over alcohol, then I was going to do whatever the man asked me to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And it's probably going to be the same thing he had to do. And it's probably going to be the same thing you had to do.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. I don't know how people who are extreme alcoholics like I am are able to stay sober apart from what it is that got them sober unless they're not a real alcoholic.
Right.
Well,
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's
well,
cool, too.
and we
Yeah.
know this, we know this too, man, is, there's warnings.
Yeah.
And so I think it's not only our place to share what the program can do for you if you do it. We equally are responsible to share the warnings. And here's the truth. You're not helping others, that's fine. But here's the truth about alcoholism, right? Is that if you're a real alcoholic, there is no middle of the road solution.
Right.
Right? There were but two alternatives. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of your intolerable situations as best you know how, or B, choose spiritual help. And here's the deal when I choose spiritual help. I don't get to choose what that looks like.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just love AA for this reason. There's many reasons, but the main reason is you can't. Here was the greatest thing for me. I knew about God, could talk about God. I could tell him about this, that, and the other, but I'm drunk.
Mm-hmm.
So while you claim a relationship with God is all this, it hasn't influenced your life. And so the thing AA has taught me is how to place action in this relationship to let it create an influence in the way I think, in the way I feel, and the way I live.
Yes.
And so that's what AA did for me. It helped me to put my faith into action, right? So it wasn't just this lofty belief that I could preach about, but yet my life had no significant change because of it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, man.
But,
Like,
dude, it's so beautiful. I don't understand. And again, like we're just sitting here talking, but I don't understand why people think that their opinions are important. Like Alcoholics Anonymous has nothing to do with my opinion. The Bible has nothing to do with my opinion.
Right.
Like these are truths and facts that are stated, and either I adopt these opinions investigate them, do them, and they prove to be true in my life, or I don't. But all I know is these men sitting on this couch investigated these suggestions and opinions of these other men, and in all actuality, it did exactly what they claimed it would do.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how what we read in the first 4 chapters of the big book is this experience with these 3 men. Like, you think where it says we had to throw lifelong conceptions out the window, this was not easy.
Right.
Do you think that was something they made up, or do you think they wrote it based on their experience?
Yeah. I mean,
Experience.
and
man.
from what I understand, you're not arguing with one guy. You're arguing with 77 alcoholics that agreed on every page. Bill would go back and forth between Akron and New York,
Yeah.
take the manuscript as he wrote a chapter, and they would all sit down and try to agree on every word of what was happening,
Yeah.
all the way through how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've ever been to a business meeting of AA, or if you just run a charity and have a board,
Yeah.
you may know how difficult it is to get 6 or 7 egotistical alcoholics
Yeah.
to
Imagine
agree on one thing.
77.
77. Like, that takes the power of God in itself. So you're not disagreeing with one person's experience. It's so important to understand that was 77 men, and that there's a massive difference between the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous.
And you know one thing that just hit me that I hope that this season can do? I feel like I hope this season can bring clarity
Yeah.
Yeah.
and an understanding to people that are closed-minded only because they know nothing about it.
Yeah. Because
They've heard bits and pieces just like we have of
Yep.
God in time. And here I am closed-minded about God, and he can't save my life because I can't open my mind. I really do feel like people who have all these different things to say about AA is bits and pieces. You never saw it. You never read the book. You never talked to somebody in AA. You never looked at the history. You never looked at the roots of the program. And so your judgment is clouded, and it's not based on facts.
Right.
And so I hope, even if you're a pastor listening to this, I hope that this is a journey that you could take with opening your mind to a program that we believe is God-driven, God-breathed.
Yeah.
It was something he used to save our life. And I hope that you can create a healthy outlook so that we're not fighting each other in our community
Yeah, man.
and bickering over how God is going to do it, instead of that, getting excited that God is going to do it, and however he chooses fit, I'm going to be excited for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Because right now, if I was honest, there is a bit of a dissension in recovery communities concerning Jesus and AA. And my objective is for these two things to be taught in a way to where there is no dissension, there is
deal.
no aggression, there is no judgment, that people can start to, instead of seek to be understood, they
Yeah.
can seek to understand.
Yeah.
And so I really hope that in this season we can usher in that for leadership and for people that are serving in this capacity to understand, man, that we put God in a box when we start to think we know how he can deliver people.
Yeah, man.
And I've just come to find out that usually becomes the ceiling that keeps me imprisoned, because I think I know how God's going to do it.
Yeah.
And I just realized, man, that God can do something with anything he chooses to.
right.
And I've watched it save people, you know?
That's right.
And so, man, I'm just so excited as
Yeah.
we continue
Yeah.
this
Yeah, me too,
journey
man.
of talking about the history of AA.
Yeah.
And how that roots has really affected us 85 plus years later.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the listeners to continue taking this journey about this 12-step program.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a hell of a ride, like I said in the beginning. But until next time,
Peace.
shoo!